There were two games as a kid that I loved playing. One was Simon Says. The other was Follow the Leader. I only liked playing the games when I was Simon or when I was the leader. Didn't like being the one being told what to do. Now, if you don't remember how the games go, it's pretty simple. In both of them, you have one child who's the leader, who leads a line of other children who are called the followers on a parade, or who barks out orders. And the leader will say and do a variety of different things, and it belongs to all of the followers to mimic the leader, to do exactly what he or she has said. Any failure to follow the directions properly means that you're out. And the game plays on until one perfect little follower is left, who then becomes the new leader. That's a fun game for kids, and it's meant to pass the time with innocent play. But I've got to tell you, the game is pretty flawed. It reduces leadership to the office of a rule giver or a trend setter, making the leader one who just simply expects people to follow his or her sporadic and arbitrary whims. It turns others, the followers, into mindless inferiors who look to their leader and who puppet them only for their own gain. It eliminates the possibility of teamwork, since it involves success only when other people fail. And it perpetuates itself by ensuring that the winner, who then becomes the next leader, is either the most mindless or the most cunning of the followers, who will then expect to be followed in the same manner. It's an awful game with awful lessons, and we shouldn't let our kids play it anymore, although I don't know if they are, because everybody's on their tablets and their phones nowadays, right? Now, truth be told, I wouldn't be bringing this up if it were only a kid's game. The problem is that it's not. It continues into adulthood. You and I, we know that game, and we ourselves play it. It's played fast and hard by many, if not most, adults. And because the only one who ever has any real fun in playing Follow the Leader is, well, the leader, it's no wonder why so many people are unhappy in their professional lives, or at home, or within their relationships. Toxic leadership is a killer of the human spirit, which was created by God in freedom and for freedom. And when you spend your life under the tyranny of a toxic leader, or desperately trying to become one yourself, you soon find yourself to just be parading around in circles, unhappy and unfulfilled. And we can't just think that this is limited to cutthroat corporate America. This dynamic can be found among spouses, between parents and children, and really wherever two or three are gathered together. Now, humanity has never liked playing this grown-up version of Follow the Leader, or Simon Says, and yet we insist on playing it. Because what else is there, right? In this dog-eat-dog world? And as the game goes on, ruining more lives and making more people unhappy, there are indeed rebels among us who arise and who call it out. They bring attention to the toxicity, to the abuse, and to the utter arbitrariness of it all, which is good. But they will then often throw out the baby with the bathwater. Because if this is what leadership looks like, and if this is what being a follower looks like, then the whole system must be crushed. There can be no leaders and no followers, just organized chaos or anarchy. And while sometimes this results in some big systemic change, 99% of the time, it simply produces an 8-word phrase that becomes the mantra for too many people. No one can tell me what to do. Our experience of leading and following has been so messed up that we default into a rugged, lonely individualism in order to protect ourselves. So what do we do? Well, there's not really much that we can do. We need a game changer, and his name is Jesus Christ. In our gospel today, Jesus initiates a new game of Follow the Leader, of Simon Says. Now, this new game retains the same words, but the meaning of the words, the purpose of the game, and the rules have all been radically changed. When Jesus says, "Follow me," it means something entirely different. And when we hear those last words in the gospel today, and they left everything and followed him, it means something entirely different. Let's look a little bit more deeply at this. First of all, the leadership that Jesus embodies is one of condescension. I don't mean that in the pejorative sense of the word, but in the truest sense. The Latin is condescendere, which means to come down among, to descend among. Jesus isn't leading a parade of single-file robots. He's entering into the lives of people, coming into their midst. He's come into their land, into their town. He gets into one of their boats in the gospel today, and he sits down, we are told, among them. He is with them. And it is only from here, a position of imminence and closeness, that he begins to teach and to lead them. The condescension of his incarnation and becoming one of us has practical consequences for everything, and this is one of them. He could have done things differently. He could have been heavy-handed. He could have been follow the leader, but he hasn't done this. He comes rather to his people, and he moves them and stirs them and leads them from within. Secondly, the leadership that Jesus embodies is one that knows and values the circumstances and the experience of others. After teaching the crowds, he looks to Simon Peter and he gives him a directive. He says, "Simon, put out into deep water and lower your nets for a catch." Now, this is not an arbitrary dance monkey that you would say in Simon Says. It's not a command and it's not self-serving. It's an invitation. Jesus knows what Simon and the others have been going through. He knows that they have fished all night long, that they've caught nothing and have been unsuccessful, and he knows that they're tired. He knows where they're at. And although his directive to cast the net again is at first received as burdensome, Peter's tired. The last thing he wants to do is do this again. He gives this command out of knowledge of what Simon needs. He needs to have this success. He needs to go through this. He needs to know that he's not being used. And Simon says it. "I will do what you command. I will lower the nets." And although he has no idea what's in store, he takes the risk in trusting Jesus. And as we know, it pays off. It always pays off. Now, thirdly, the leadership that Jesus embodies is one of mercy. When Simon Peter sees what Jesus does for him, filling his nets with so much fish that it almost capsizes, Peter immediately recognizes that he is unworthy of this kind of leadership. He's filled with the acute awareness of his own sinfulness, and he knows that he could never follow in the footsteps of such greatness and holiness. But again, Jesus is not looking for just a perfect little robot or a puppet to follow him. He's looking specifically and particularly for Simon Peter. He invites him to follow him, knowing full well that Peter is going to mess up several times moving forward. And in Jesus' game of follow the leader, you don't get thrown out for failing. You get shown mercy. Finally, the leadership that Jesus embodies is one of sacrifice. And it's this that gives purpose and meaning to everything else. He has come to serve, not to be served. And so he leads these bumbling fishermen and all of us as one who fills them, as one who offers himself for them, not vice versa. What does this kind of leadership do? It creates true followers. Having been moved and having been loved, they find the freedom to give up everything. and to follow him, not out of coercion or fear, but out of awe and love. My friends, each one of us in our life, we are a leader in certain ways and we are a follower in certain ways. And if we don't cleanse and purify the way that we look at this dynamic, we're going to cause ourselves and others to continue to be unhappy. But if we first of all see ourselves as followers of Jesus, not mindless robots who just blindly obey, but as true followers of Jesus, who have seen his imminent presence in our life, who has heard his call to follow him, who knows that he does this out of love for us. He sacrifices himself for us. If we can situate ourselves in that reality, then let that be the dynamic by which we lead others in our lives, whether we're the boss at work or whether we're the mother or father in the family, whether we're the teacher in the classroom, whether we're the priest in the parish. Lead from within. Lead from sacrifice, lead from love. And then as a follower, recognize that being a good follower is not being a puppet, but being a good follower is trusting and taking the risk and recognizing that you don't always necessarily know the whole picture. And if you can see that the one who is in leadership over you is giving his or her life for you, then you can take the risk and drop everything to follow them. That's how we change the game. We don't need any more follow the leader, or Simon says. We just need to look to Jesus. And in him, we will find our happiness, we will find our life, we will find our salvation. We will find the true meaning of happiness in this life. Let's pray today as we hear these words of the Holy Gospel. You and I will be changed by them, and that we will live in accord with them.